It's wild. It's wild is what it is. It's wild. That's wild. We'll be singing out loud to the Rolling Stones. Yeah, so my name is Leah Turner, and I'm from the high desert in California. My father is originally from New Mexico, and then my mom is first generation Mexican American. And so I say that I'm half cowgirl because he's a 15-time champion in the rodeo. So I say I'm half cowgirl and I'm Mexican because I'm second generation Mexican American. So I grew up in California, on the rodeo circuit. I always say that I've been growing up chasing rodeos and now I'm chasing stages. And it's been an awesome life being able to see, the world through two different cultures and two different sets of owls, and really never really knowing any. My parents got married in a time where you didn't marry outside your race. There was a fearlessness when they did that, and I think that fearlessness has always been instilled in me. And you have to have that to chase this crazy dream called the music business. Recently, yes, but for the last 5 years, it has been. When I was first signed to Sony Records, it wasn't the time, I guess you could say, to embrace the Mexican side of who I am. And that was told to me because sometimes the demographic of country music can be a little bit one-sided to a certain demographic. And for not really trying to open up a conversation of race. And so I can find that I'm half Mexican. So they leaned a lot more on my white side. And then once I was able to really be in the driver's seat of my career, when Sony and I parted separate ways, I was able to really embrace both sides of who I am and be 100% authentically. I'm 50% white and 50% Mexican. And country music has always had a love affair with the Mexican, with the Latino, with the Hispanic culture. There wouldn't be rodeos or American cowboys without the vaqueros. All of the American cowboys traditions are derivative of the first cowboys, which are the vaqueros. And so they have been living I guess you could say, the Mexican way for a very long time, and it's an honor for me to be able to represent the not only the American cowboy and cowgirl way, but also represent Mexicanas and Mexicanos and Latinos in country music. Actually have somebody be the person that has the sangre, the blood, in my veins. So at 100% now I'm able to implement that and go back and forth in Spanish and English and bring in Spanish guitars and bring in, more of that, I would say, Tejano, mariachi, banda sound into country music. Well, I think that definitely, gifts are given to you by God, and by the Lord. And so I was, given the gift of a voice in musicality. It's just whether or not you embrace it. And when I was a little girl, I sat down at my grandmother's piano. And most kids bang on the piano, and my mom said at 3 years old, I sat down and played very delicately. And so she really watched that. And my mom was a ballet dancer. My mom can sing, my nana can sing, all my aunts can sing on my mom's side, which is really crazy that the Mexican side is where I got musicality. And then I came out looking white and in country music, and then they didn't want me to embrace my Mexican side, And so she really watched, where I kind of went and if I embraced that. So then she had me in piano lessons and guitar lessons and, voice lessons and dance lessons and really watched where I kind of gravitated to. She kind of cultivated the gift that was, God-given inside it. It's a lot of hard work and, you don't want to be practicing piano and guitar when all your friends are out at the mall hitting on cute boys. She would, force me. There was a time where she would have to force me to practice and really stick with it. And then I went to school in Santa Barbara to become an attorney, a lawyer. And all of my classes started taking up with like songwriting classes and, voice lessons. I was trained opera at the Music Academy of the West in Santa Barbara. There was one songwriting class where they said, the final would be to write a song, and whoever song gets picked was going to sing you a celebrity guest. And that celebrity guest was Kenny Loggins, because he lives in Santa Barbara. And so my son got picked. I sang in front of him, and he was like, listen, I'm not telling you to drop out of school, but I am telling you that you have a future in music. I was like, whatever. And because it's unfathomable that able to do something. It really is. It's unfathomable, especially when you really make it. It's unfathomable, especially when you really sign a major record deal and you've been able to be an opening act, for almost a year with Brad Paisley, and you sit and you're playing the Greek Theater with Jake Owen, and you're on the road with Rascal Flatts, and you're doing all of those things that you dreamt of, and then you're actually standing in that dream coming true. It's unfathomable when you're looking at it to set out to do it. It's like, yeah, right. Like, that's like, what are we talking about? Like, 1% does that. Like, that's crazy, So then, I don't know, I just woke up one morning and I just called my parents. And I'm like, I'm dropping out of college and I'm going to LA to pursue music. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know anybody in the music business. Like, I don't know anything, but I'm going. And they were like, great, we'll send it the truck and we'll be out there. And that was like the next logical move, because it's only 2 hours from Santa Barbara, California. So I bounced around in LA for a little bit, and I was working as a hostess at this place called Mastro's Steakhouse in Beverly Hills. And there's a restaurant that's down the street called the Scala. If you're ever in Beverly Hills, they have the best Italian chopped salad. And there was a busboy that also worked at Mastro's, but he also worked at La Scala. And he sent us over, my mom and I, a free dessert because we were eating. And there was these two women, and they said, why do you get free dessert and we don't? And it was like, oh, that's because we're cuter than you are, just, playing with them, And I was like, well, actually, I'm a singer, and, I shouldn't even be eating this food because, everyone's so crazy about weight in LA. She said, well, my husband has won 24 Grammys. If you're any good, because I love the tone of your voice, here's my address. Send me a demo if you have it. And I was like, everyone's wife has done something, husband's done something in this stinking town, whatever. My mom said, send it. And so I sent it. And it was David Foster and Umberto Gatica. So, when you ask how I got started, literally it was just God's favor on my life. So, next thing I know, 2 weeks later, I'm at David Foster's house recording, and they got, they cut 5 sides on me, and I got the most amazing, beautiful music back from, the two of them, but it just wasn't me. I wasn't Michael Bublé or working at Whitney Houston. I wasn't any of those amazing artists that they had produced, but that just wasn't who I was. I wasn't Barbra Streisand. So they said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'm a cowboy. That's who I am, So they sent me to Nashville, and here we are. History in the making. Yeah, it's been a little bit different, because it's been different than when I was on Sony. Because when I was on Sony, I had a top 40 single. I toured, the whole United States with Brad Paisley. And I remember when I was a little girl, I saw Trisha Yearwood at, 9 years old. And she hit this huge note at the Greek Theater and fell over because she hit the note so big, and it made me cry. And then cut to 15 years later, I'm standing on the Greek Theater singing my own songs, my own top 40 single, opening for Jake Owen, and my own tour bus. So the process has been a little bit different from that era, I would say, because it was all English. It was more down the middle of what I guess you would say country music listeners. So now it's a little bit different because, you have to kind of think outside the box, and not a lot of people speak Spanish here in Nashville. Not a lot of people know about the Mexican culture here in Nashville, and they do think that just, you're Latino, like you're just, everyone's the same, and that's not the case. Colombians are very different than Mexicanos. Like Argentinians are very different than Colombians. Puerto Ricans are very different than Venezuelans. And so that process is a little bit different. But what is the same is that, the Mexican culture and the country music culture, the very fabric of who they are is hard work, faith, family, and the rodeo way. And then also, we all love to have a good time. So you really are pulling from the same threads to make a sweater, for a lack of a better, analogy. It just looks a little bit different. It's just, it has different instruments and different colors and some different descriptions. But so that's how it goes through. You're literally pulling from the same box. It just sounds a little different and looks a little different. But you pull from life experiences. And, I wrote a song called American Made, and it's just talking about how two roads built me, one from Mexico and one from California. And if you're like me, who, dreams big, and you're like me who stands up for who you are, we're all the same. We're American made, because I am a product of the American dream. Well, I mean, I have to say that I've been really blessed to do a lot of incredible things. Like my first single, Take the Keys, changed my life. It has given me a career. It has allowed me to know a lot of radio people. I've had chart success. But, I wrote for a guy named Jeremy Renner. He's an Academy Award winning actor. I wrote this whole record with him. And, he's like Hawkeye and in the Avengers and Wind River and whatever. I've been really blessed to do a lot of things. I think this, for me, is probably my favorite, just being able to be 100% authentically who I am. And I didn't even know this, but LA Times did a huge article on me, and I'm the highest charted solo female Latina in country music. And being able to bring these two worlds together, and to use your word, is groundbreaking. It's allowed me to have my clothes, hanging in the Power of Women in Country Music Grammy Museum. I mean, you just think like, wait, what? My clothes are hanging in the Grammy Museum? Like, that's wild, and it goes back to my point of like, you just think when you're dreaming it, you're literally standing in the dream. And so for me to bring something different to country music, and it's not easy, because being different is never easy, but it's worth it. It's my favorite. It's my favorite to kick down walls. It's my favorite to push. It's my favorite to make people uncomfortable too when you're doing something different. Because if you're constantly staying in the same way and you're not changing, you become stagnant. And then when you become stagnant, what happens? You rot, right? So nobody wants to rot. So I think this is my favorite chapter of who I am, because you're breaking boundaries. And I believe my parents broke boundaries, and so that's been instilled in me. My grandparents came over here from Mexico, and they broke boundaries. And it's just a thread that's in my life. And so to be able to be carrying on that tradition of breaking boundaries and doing something different, and it's pretty awesome. Yeah, so me and my producer, Brett Boyette, we wrote it together. And Jerrod and I have been friends for a really long time. We were both on Sony together, and then we both went our separate ways from Sony at the same time. And then we just like maintained our friendship, and we had started writing together like within the last year and a half. And he's produced a couple of songs on me that will be coming out on my EP at the beginning of the year, alongside with Brett. And he's always just like, Jerrod is like the coolest dude, so much fun, so laid back. And when I sat down to write with him, just the way that he takes your ideas or anything that you say and turns them, I was just like, man, that's why they pay you the big bucks. Like, he is just so talented and just really awesome. But he already kind of had that like Mexican vibe, like he had that song, like, I always get this title wrong, but It's one of my favorite songs, which you think I would know the title. But I mean, how can you be down when you're down in Mexico? And then he also had that #1 with Pitbull, I Can Drink to That All Night. They did a remix. And so he had already kind of like tapped into that Latin market, and he was already familiar with it. And he's just a great hang. So when I asked him to do it with me, I didn't hear from him for a little bit. And then I just got a text message at like 7:30 on a random Saturday. And he was like, "Hey, outlaw, am I singing in Spanish or what?" And I was like, "You're going to do it?" He was like, "I'm in, send me the song." I was like, "Yes." So it's an absolute honor to have somebody of his caliber and his talent, and also just him as a person, to be, putting their support and doing it with me, because he didn't have to. So it's pretty awesome. Yeah, so today, actually, the acoustic version of South of the Border comes out. And then next week, I do not remember the date off the top of my head, but the video of South of the Border comes out of me and Jerrod. And then we have a Christmas song coming out. Myself has a Christmas song coming out, and it's called Noche Buena, which is a good night. Because a lot of people don't know that, like, Latinos don't celebrate Christmas Day. We celebrate Christmas Eve, and it's like the good night, and it's really celebrating Christ's birth the night before he changes all of our lives. And then the beginning of the year, I think the end of January, we haven't like solidified the date, but we'll have an EP coming out with 6 songs on there. And then also we're translating all of the songs in full. I'm translating all the full songs in Spanish, which is a huge feat. But translating all the full songs in Spanish, we'll release all of those on the EP. Oh man, there's just so many. There are just so many. Yeah, that is a really, really loaded question. But I will say, getting the call that people wanted my clothes in the Grammy Museum, and then having my grandfather's hat hanging in there as well, my Mexican grandfather, to be able to carry on because he's since passed, to be able to carry on the American dream, that they fought to give, my family, my mom's side of the family, a better life. And that's why we all come here, to have a better life. And that the American dream does exist. If we're not careful, it's not going to exist so much longer. But it does exist. And so to be able to have such a huge dream and a high honor, and to have his hat hanging in there alongside my clothes, that was pretty surreal. I mean, it's the Grammys. You're welcome. Thank you guys for taking the time and reaching out. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon. It's getting hotter down